There is power in your breath, child. Look not to the left or right, for what is divine within you don't need mirrors. Let them run. You walk, soft, steady, sacred. Be still and listen. Tend to your becoming. You are the masterpiece, and no one's applause will ever crown your worth. When we dare to sit quietly with ourselves, to listen without judgment and look without flinching, something remarkable begins to unfold. Self-reflection is not a grand event with fireworks and declarations. It is a quiet reckoning, a gentle excavation of who we are beneath all that we perform, pretend, and protect. It asks nothing but honesty, and in return, it gives everything: clarity, strength, and direction. Growth does not come wrapped in applause or covered in spotlights. It comes when we pause, when we dare to ask ourselves, why did I say that? Why did I shrink? Why did I stay silent when I wanted to scream? These questions are not punishments. They are invitations to return to ourselves, to reintroduce ourselves to the person we've become while chasing approval, comfort, or control. Self-reflection brings awareness, and awareness is a holy mirror. It shows you not only who you are, but what you could become if only you'd stop running from your own shadow. This journey inward is not always beautiful. Sometimes it feels like holding a candle in a cave filled with echoes and regrets. Sometimes it feels like peeling back layers of pride, defense, and disappointment. But through that brave stillness, we learn to speak truth to the parts of ourselves that hurt and hide. We begin to hear the quieter voices, our intuition, our longing, our forgotten dreams that have been drowned by noise. And when we listen long enough, something shifts. We stop blaming the world for what we've refused to confront in ourselves. The beauty of self-reflection is that it requires no stage, no permission, no praise. You can do it in silence, in sorrow, in strength. You can do it while washing dishes, walking alone, or weeping in the dark. It is a sacred solitude that does not isolate. It connects. Because once you begin to know yourself truly, you begin to meet others with more grace, more patience, more understanding. You stop projecting your wounds onto the world and start healing them where they live, within. We live in a world that rushes us to keep up, to stay visible, to perform our worth in posts and updates. But growth, real growth, does not need an audience. It needs roots. It needs time. It needs the quiet conviction of someone who is no longer afraid to sit with their own soul and ask, what am I learning here? What do I keep repeating, and why? What pain am I still carrying, and can I finally lay it down? These are the questions that lead to transformation, not by force, but by faith. You do not grow by knowing more than others. You grow by knowing more about yourself. You grow when you stop blaming the traffic and begin to notice how often you're late. You grow when you stop pointing at the storm and start realizing you've been carrying thunder in your own chest. And that thunder can turn into song if you're willing to listen. So return to yourself, not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. When the world is loud and your spirit is weary, go within. That is where the change lives. That is where the becoming begins. And that, dear heart, is how self-reflection breeds not only growth, but liberation. Comparison is a thief. It does not knock. It slips in quiet, like a shadow stretching across joy, unnoticed until the light feels dimmer. It tiptoes into your mirror and whispers that your reflection is not enough, that someone else has more beauty, more brilliance, more ease, more applause. And suddenly what you once held with pride feels small. What you once cherished becomes dull. What you once dreamed now feels distant. Comparison does not come to build. It comes to steal. You were not made from a mold, yet you measure yourself against others as if there is only one way to be worthy, as if their success diminishes your possibility. as if their highlight reel is a blueprint for your becoming. But comparison distorts. It shows you someone else's fruit, but never their roots. It shows you the finished sculpture, but hides the hours of chiseling, the quiet tears, the doubts they buried deep. It hands you the cover of a book and asks why your story doesn't match. When you compare, you forget your own beginning. You forget the miles you've walked barefoot just to stand where you are. You forget the nights you cried into your pillow and still woke up with courage. You forget the unique storm you survived, the way you bloomed in dry soil. And the moment you forget, you start shrinking. You start twisting your voice to match another's song. You start doubting your pace, questioning your gifts, silencing your own soul. Comparison doesn't just steal joy, it steals time. Hours spent scrolling through someone else's life could be spent cultivating your own. Minutes wasted worrying about what they have could be poured into what you are building. It is not envy that poisons us first. It is the belief that we are somehow behind, somehow less, somehow wrong in our journey. But you are not behind, you are becoming, you are unfolding, and the speed of your growth does not define its worth. No flower looks at another and decides to stop blooming. No river asks the ocean why it isn't wider yet. Nature thrives in diversity, in rhythm, in surrender to its own cycle. So must you. You are not meant to be anyone else. Your voice, your mind, your laughter, your losses, these are your ingredients. They are sacred. When you begin to honor your journey instead of comparing it, you reclaim your joy. You walk lighter, you speak clearer, you rest easier. Comparison tricks you into seeing life as a race, but there is no finish line. There is only the question, are you becoming more of who you are or less? There is only the truth. You do not need to be better than them. You only need to be better than the silence that once told you not to try. And if you must look at someone, let it be not with envy, but with empathy. Let it remind you of what's possible, not what's missing. When you see someone soaring, let it inspire you, not undo you. Their wings were not meant to tear yours down. You do not rise by chasing someone else's wind. You rise by breathing deep into your own lungs, by grounding yourself in your own soil. And when you do, you remember, comparison is not a compass. It will not guide you. It will only confuse you, distract you, diminish you. Your true direction is inward. Your only competition is the doubt that says you can't. So let them shine, let them win, let them be who they are. And while they do, focus not on catching up, but on waking up to your voice, your vision, your path, because you are not here to measure up. You are here to rise on your own terms, in your own time. Purpose is personal. It does not come with a blueprint, nor is it handed out like assignments on the first day of school. It rises slowly, sometimes painfully, from within. It whispers in your quiet moments, in your sleepless nights, in the things that move you for reasons you can't explain. It is not loud. It is not always clear, but it is yours, and yours alone. The mistake we often make is thinking purpose has to look a certain way, that it must come with titles, stages, applause, or even recognition. But purpose isn't about performance. It is about presence. It's about that quiet conviction that you were made for something more than just surviving the days. It's about finding meaning in your steps, even when the world isn't watching. It's personal because no one else can walk it for you. No one else can define it, approve it, or validate it. And yet, too often, we give others the authority to name our calling. We look around and think, if only I were more like her. If only I had his confidence, their platform, their ease. But your purpose is not waiting in someone else's life. It's waiting in your own. It's in the way your heart aches when you see injustice. It's in the way your hands move when you create. It's in the things that make you lose track of time, that stir your soul, that light your eyes in a way nothing else does. It does not have to make sense to anyone but you. It does not have to be big to be beautiful. Sometimes purpose is raising a child with gentleness in a world that rewards cruelty. Sometimes it's writing in journals no one will read, but that keep you alive. Sometimes it's building something from nothing, not for glory, but for growth. And sometimes it's simply showing up again and again when every voice in your head tells you not to. Purpose doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's just a soft voice that says, "This matters to me. This feels right. This is mine." When you make your purpose personal, you stop chasing applause and start chasing alignment. You start asking better questions. What do I care about? What breaks my heart? What makes me feel whole? And slowly, you build a life not around shoulds and expectations, but around truth. A life that fits, not one that impresses. A life that honors your design, your wounds, your wisdom. Because the truth is, no one else can see the full picture of your becoming. They only see the pieces you share, but you hold the whole canvas. You were never meant to replicate someone else's journey. You were meant to walk your own with courage. And yes, it will get lonely. It will get hard. There will be days when you question everything. But in those moments, remember, your purpose was not voted on. It was placed within you, not by man, but by the deep divine mystery that crafted your soul. And if that mystery saw fit to give you this purpose, then it is your sacred responsibility to carry it, not perfectly, but faithfully. The world will try to distract you, seduce you, shame you out of your purpose. It will tell you to fit in, to be practical, to do what's safe. But your purpose was never meant to be safe. It was meant to wake you up. It was meant to stretch you. It was meant to teach you who you really are when no one else is looking. So protect it. Listen to it. Feed it with your time, your tenderness, your trust. Because purpose is not out there waiting to be found. It is already within you, waiting to be honored. And the moment you stop seeking permission and start listening inward, that is the moment you begin to live the life that is truly yours. Silence is a sanctuary, not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. In a world that never stops speaking, posting, reacting, and responding, silence becomes sacred, not because it is empty, but because it is full. Full of answers we miss in the noise. Full of truths we are too busy to hear, full of the self we keep running from. It is in silence that we are finally confronted by our own voice, the one we often drown out with distractions. There is something holy about the quiet, something ancient, something healing. When we stop filling the air with explanations, justifications, and performances, we are left with only what is real. And though it can be uncomfortable at first, it is in that discomfort that growth begins. Because silence doesn't lie to you. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't pretend. It simply reveals. And what it reveals is often what we most need to see about ourselves, about our fears, about what we've been carrying that's no longer meant for us. People fear silence because it feels like nothing is happening. But in truth, everything is happening. Roots are growing, clarity is forming, wounds are beginning to close. Silence teaches us to observe without reacting, to witness without controlling. It invites us to slow down long enough to notice the space between the thoughts, the rhythm of our own breath, the quiet wisdom of our inner knowing. It is the breath between words where meaning lives. It is the pause in a conversation that holds the most weight. Silence holds us like a mother, not with noise, but with presence. The noise outside is constant, but the real war is the noise within, the overthinking, the looping thoughts, the voice that tells you you're not enough, not ready, not worthy. But when you sit in silence, even those voices begin to fade. Not because they are silenced immediately, but because you stop feeding them. You stop answering them. You begin to realize you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness beneath them. And in that space, something powerful happens. You reclaim your peace. We are taught to fill every moment, to multitask, to scroll, to speak, just to be heard. But silence reminds us that not everything needs to be said, not every moment needs to be captured, and not every space needs to be filled. There is strength in restraint. There is wisdom in waiting, and there is grace in being still. Silence doesn't demand attention, but it commands it. In its presence, we are reminded of what is essential. The noise falls away, and what remains is truth. When you give yourself silence, you give yourself back to yourself. You reconnect with your body, your emotions, your purpose. You start to hear the whispers that got lost in the static, the quiet call to rest, the gentle pull toward change, the reminder that you are more than your productivity, your opinions, your performance. You are a soul, and your soul speaks in silence. We seek peace everywhere, in people, in places, in possessions, but peace begins where the noise ends. And to end the noise, you must be brave enough to be quiet, not to escape, but to return, not to disconnect, but to realign. Silence is not isolation, it is intimacy with the self. It is the sacred space where you remember who you were before the world told you who to be, where you feel, not perform, where you rest, not hustle, where you simply are, and that is enough. To sit in silence is to sit in power, not power over others, but power over the chaos within. And in that power, we heal, we soften, we listen, we become. Grace in solitude is not always easy to find, but it is always waiting. We often mistake solitude for loneliness, as if being alone is something to fix, something to fill. But solitude, when honored, is a gift. It is not an emptiness, but a sacred space where we come back to ourselves without interruption, without judgment, and without the need to be anything other than what we are. In a world that praises the busy, the connected, the constantly available, choosing solitude feels like rebellion. But it is not a rebellion against others. It is a return to self. In solitude, we begin to peel away the layers we've worn to fit in. The masks, the titles, the roles, we lay them down and meet the raw, quiet truth of who we are underneath it all. And it is there, in that vulnerable stillness, that grace begins to rise. Grace doesn't arrive with fanfare. It comes softly, like morning light through sheer curtains. It does not demand attention. It does not force change. It simply invites us to rest, to reflect, to remember. In solitude, we stop performing and start listening. We hear the buried longings we've pushed aside, the grief we've ignored, the dreams we've dismissed. And instead of running from them, we sit with them. We hold space for what hurts and what heals, and we do so without needing an audience. There is a kind of strength that grows in the quiet, not the loud, obvious kind, but the steady kind, the kind that builds resilience, the kind that makes you whisper to yourself, "I can do this," even when no one is cheering. Grace in solitude teaches you that your worth is not dependent on visibility, that you are valuable even when no one is watching, even when no one is clapping, even when you're simply breathing through the stillness. Some days, solitude feels like peace. Other days, it feels like a mirror reflecting back all the things you've avoided. But both are necessary. The peace reminds you of your center, and the reflection helps you grow. When you allow yourself to be fully present in solitude, you stop seeking approval. You stop molding yourself to fit expectations. You stop apologizing for your pace, your process, your presence. You begin to see that you are enough as you are, where you are. There is grace in knowing that solitude is not something to survive. It is something to savor. It is not punishment. It is preparation. It teaches you how to fill your own cup, how to hold your own heart, how to stand on your own 2 feet with gentleness instead of grit. It gives you room to breathe, to stretch, to ask yourself the questions no one else can answer for you. And in those quiet conversations with yourself, you rediscover your voice, the one that doesn't shout to be heard, but speaks truth with calm conviction. You begin to understand that not every chapter is meant to be loud. Some seasons are meant for stillness, for slow mornings, for walking without destination, for listening without reacting. You find beauty in the unshared moments, in the laughter that no one hears, in the tears that no one needs to explain. Solitude becomes less of a shadow and more of a companion, a gentle reminder that wholeness was never something you had to earn through others. It was something already living within you. And in the grace of that solitude, you grow softer, not weak, but open, not fragile, but real. You begin to show up differently to your work, your relationships, your dreams, because you are no longer coming from emptiness. You are coming from wholeness, from having met yourself in the quiet and realizing that your own company is not only enough, it is a sanctuary. Shine without shame. Let your light speak before you do. Let it enter the room with quiet confidence, not arrogance, but presence. There is a power in being unapologetically yourself, in showing up as you are without shrinking, without explaining, without dimming your fire to make others comfortable. And yet for many, the light we carry is hidden under layers of doubt, guilt, and fear. Not because we are not worthy of shining, but because somewhere along the way, we were taught that brightness must be earned, and even then, kept small. But you were never meant to play small. You were not given gifts to keep them wrapped. You were not born with a voice to keep it silent, nor a spirit to keep it caged. The world may have tried to convince you that humility means invisibility, that kindness means silence, that greatness is something you must seek in others but never claim for yourself. But the truth is, your brilliance does not harm others. It invites them to rise. It reminds them they can shine too. To shine without shame is to step fully into the truth of who you are. It is to know your worth before anyone affirms it. It is to walk into a room and not wonder if you belong, but to carry yourself like you already do. It is to be bold with your joy, your wisdom, your pain, your strength, not to be better than anyone else, but to be fully yourself in a world that keeps asking you to be something else. Shame whispers, "Don't be too loud. Don't be too proud. Don't take up too much space." But grace answers, "You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to be celebrated. You are allowed to exist in the fullness of your being." The light in you is not arrogance. It is authenticity. It is the reflection of all the lessons you've learned, the battles you've fought, the love you've given, the peace you've earned. Dimming yourself does not serve anyone. In fact, it robs the world of the very thing only you can bring. There will be those who misunderstand your light, who call your confidence conceit, your joy performative, your clarity intimidating. Let them. You are not responsible for shrinking yourself to soothe someone else's insecurity. You are only responsible for being honest, for being kind, for being whole. And being whole means owning your light, all of it, even the parts that make others uncomfortable. Shining without shame also means embracing your scars, because your light is not about perfection, it is about presence. It's not just the parts of you that are polished, practiced, and poised. It's also the parts that are bruised, healing, raw, and real. Your light is not always sunshine, it's sometimes fire. It's sometimes a steady glow in the darkest room. It's the courage to keep going when no one sees, the grace to try again after failure, the beauty of rising without explanation. There will always be someone who wants you to be less, but you do not owe anyone a version of yourself that fits inside their comfort. You owe yourself freedom, freedom to speak, to move, to create, to dance, to take up space as if you were made to, because you were. You were not made to disappear. You were made to illuminate. And every time you choose to be seen, you give others silent permission to do the same. So walk with your head held high, even if your voice shakes. Laugh loudly, even if no one joins you. Keep building, writing, painting, leading, dreaming, even if the applause never comes. Because the act of shining by itself is enough. You do not need validation to be valuable. You do not need permission to be powerful. Just shine. Without shame, without doubt, without waiting, just shine. In a world that constantly tells you to prove, to perform, to compare, and to conform, there is something revolutionary about turning inward. This entire journey of focusing on yourself, not others, is not rooted in ego, but in truth. When you choose self-reflection over noise, purpose over pressure, silence over chaos, solitude over distraction, and shining without shame, you reclaim what the world tries to scatter: your power, your peace, your presence. You are not here to mimic someone else's path. You are here to walk your own with grace in your step and fire in your spirit. You are not late. You are not lacking. You are unfolding in perfect time. And when you stop measuring your life against others and start honoring your own rhythm, that's when the real magic happens. Not because the world changed, but because you did. So walk your road gently, but boldly. Be your own mirror, your own muse, your own measure. Trust the stillness, trust the becoming, and most of all, trust the light in you, because it was never meant to be hidden.